Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
The 110 Nation Sports Show. It's starting to look a lot like Christmas. Yes, that's got to be the thing. Things toned down in the land. Yes, being a Cleveland fan, this feels like Christmas tonight as we're getting ready to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers tip off the 2016/17 season, get their rings, hang their banner. Just across the road, the Cleveland Indians are getting ready to host Game 1 of the World Series. Definitely don't know what to do, what present to unwrap. I'm going with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks game. I got that on here in the studio. I am going to do my best to not only keep you guys updated on what's going on, especially more so the World Series, but to even pay attention to what's going on here in the studio. Luckily, I got Mike here tonight with me to kind of keep us on task and keep the show going in the right direction. I am going to be all over the place tonight with everything Cleveland going on. So very excited about tonight. Very excited about not only going to the 3-hour show starting last night. Yes, we've expanded. We are 7 to 10 now. Very excited about the number one night here at the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network. We got Rev Racing and Drive for Diversity program driver Ali Kern, Ohioian. We're going to catch up with her. She had a 2016 season win, Hal win at the Combine for the Drive for Diversity. What her off season is, what she's got planned for the off season, and if she's got any plans for her career for 2017, and then, of course, we're going to pick her brain, being Ohioan. Does she have any opinions, thoughts, or anything about what's going on from Cleveland as they are showing the traffic out there in Cleveland? Wow. And speaking of which, I was seeing clips and photographs of parking spots, parking attendants and stuff. $100 for a parking spot in Cleveland today. Now, you thought that $10, $20 to find a parking spot was outrageous, even $30? $100. Park your car downtown. So they're definitely building this up for the 2016 season. Very excited about this. They're getting ready to tip off. Then we got Mark Rette of Rette Jones Racing catching us in the studio at 7 o'clock. We're going to see what's going on at RJR, any updates, highlights, anything. And then we're going to jump into NASCAR, talk about the chase, talk about Talladega, get his thoughts, and get ourselves ready for Martinsville. And then to wrap things up, we got Izzo joining us at the studio at 9:30. And we're going to get some NHL updates and see how the season's going. And Izzo's going to be running away with things at that point in time. What we're going to do is we're going to bring Mike into the studio, and then we're going to jump into what we got to jump into while we get ready for tonight's show. Before we do that, Let's thank we got to thank. I got to thank Fit for Life. Make sure you guys check them out on Facebook. Fit for Life. Make sure that you guys go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. Right inside, I got a banner. All you got to do is click on it. Let you know the location near you. 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Great, clean facility, courtesy staff, everything you need. Fit for Life. Also, Snafu Season, the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday night, 9 p.m. 100% all natural, no preservative meat rub. Make sure you guys check them out. I-95 Sports Network and Mile High Radio for rebroadcasting or syndicating our shows. All these people help us grow, and gotta thank them very, very much for that. You guys can check us out on Facebook, 110 Nation Sports. You can check out my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports. You can catch us on Twitter at 110 Nation. You can check me out at CJ Sports 1. And like I said, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com. Let's get Mike in the studio as they're getting ready to do the trophy ring and banner thing. So we'll let Mike do his thing while I'm entertained with this for a few minutes. So, Mike, there's no rush. Let them know what's going on Friday. Let them know how they can find you, follow you, and we'll jump into some NASCAR talk from that point. But without any further delay, Mike, how you doing tonight?
Okay, CJ, how you doing? I know you must be like a kid in the candy store. I know.
Yes.
I know. Very interesting show Friday night, the way it's shaping up. I have one guest locked in, and it's a return guest. Ann Young will be back Friday night. She is working on a event on Long Island. That's why I'm having her on. She is going to be affiliated in some regard. I don't know how involved she is in this, but we'll be talking to her basically about a tribute to Bob Farnan, the announcer of and the PR guy of Riverhead, who is this year celebrating, or either celebrated or celebrating, I guess the year's not over yet, his 40th year in oil racing on Long Island as far as announcing and all that he does. So she is involved in some way, shape, or form with that. We'll be talking to her about that on Friday night. That's coming up in October sometime. And also we will be talking to her about any updates on Bronson since we had her on. I think it was the second week in, CJ. She was on my show. Week 2, I think, the second program of the year. And so we haven't had her back in a while, and I figured with this event coming up for Mr. Farnan, we would get her on and let her talk about the event a little bit and what's going on with that. But we'll also update people on what's going on with Bronson in the off-season and, of course, going into next year. And her big event at the start of the year is always the Speed Weeks. She has a event that's in collaboration with or, connected to Speed Weeks at New Smyrna. So we'll be talking to her about everything that's coming up with Bronson Speedway as well. And another guest, which I am attempting to get, and Eddie Partridge put me in touch with him as far as a phone number. I text him and got in touch with him. I haven't gotten a response yet, but very hopeful that Ryan Preece will be on Friday night as well. And a third guest having to do with a very important event on Long Island as well. Young man by the name of Jay Trinka, who years ago was involved with go-karts and so forth, and they have a karting event. And this, unfortunately, young man passed away about, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago now. if not a little bit more. I want to say 3 years, but they have an event every year that is like a memorial. That's what they call it, the Jay Trinka Memorial for go-karts at Riverhead as well. Linda Salamito is involved with that, and I was in touch with her. Unfortunately, she's not feeling well, and so she can't appear. But I believe Kyle Elwood, who's also been on the show, has been involved with that as well as young George Tanko, who was also involved with his son and father and son deal with the legend cars. So we will be discussing with them. Hopefully, if George comes on, we'll be discussing the event plus the legend division as it pans out now for next year as well. But also, we'll be dealing with the basically with the go-kart event and the memorial. Again, a very very interesting event. Unfortunately, with the young man passing away, that's more or less of a memorial. But that's an important event to us on Long Island. So we'll be having them there to talk about that. George or Kyle Elwood, who is also involved with it. He told me today he would get in touch with Kyle and see if he was available to come on. So those two gentlemen will be on talking about that event. And so I'm very, very excited, especially if we can get Ryan on as well. Been trying to get Ryan Priest on. Again, another individual I've been trying to get on the show since it debuted. Again, this is what's happening with a lot of what I mentioned. A lot of the people might be involved or might be available to come on live in the off season. So I'm hoping Ryan is not really off season yet because he's still running Xfinity, but I mentioned to him in a text that all he needs to do is call in and have a cell phone ready. So we'll see what happens on Friday night. Hopefully he will be on as well, CJ. Okay, as far as my social media, you can get me on my Facebook page, on the Hot Laps with Stats fan page, and the Hot Laps with Stats pages, which I will be putting up publicity as soon as things are nailed down for this week as well. And you can get me on Twitter at Stats108. So that's basically where, and I also put up multiple stories, multiple articles on the 110 pages. Today again, obviously with the World Series, the NFL, and some NBA stuff, and some NASCAR stuff, which CJ mentioned we'll be discussing. So those things are up for you to read. The NASCAR story just went up right before airtime, so you might not have seen that yet, but that's also up on the 110 pages. And so that's the deal there, and that's what we have going on Friday night. Again, three possible good guests. Ryan Priest, Ann Young is definite, so she'll be on Friday night. Then Ryan Priest and two gentlemen talking about a memorial event, the Jay Trinka Memorial, also coming up as well in October. So that's some very interesting events coming up, in addition to, I believe, a swap shop as well. So we'll be talking to the individuals about that. A lot of off-season activity and awards and so forth, and situations like that also coming up, and tributes as well on Long Island as well as New England. I said to Jim I would mention this again. Jim Williams, the New England Antique Racers, having their banquet or induction banquet ceremony in November as well, coming up. So all these things affiliated now with the off season, as well as some off-season races here and there, such as the Turkey Derby and specialized things coming up. I was mentioning or noticing today, too, C.J. Lehman, who came on my show on last Friday, mentioning Bethel. So those guys will be going up to Bethel this weekend. I think the Legend guys, again, are running a major event up there, or they're one of the divisions that run Bethel Speedway a lot. So that's another race that's coming up this weekend as well. So a lot of activity, and I'll be trying to keep myself up to date on everything that's going on this week, and of course leading into next week. But as far as my show Friday, again, 3 potentially very interesting guests, and we definitely have right now Ann Young coming on from Bronson to talk about her speedway, and also the tribute coming up to Bob Farnan. So it's a very interesting show again, CJ.
I'm trying to watch the ring ceremony in the beginning with, and I'm watching on Sling TV, and the internet connection where I'm at right now is not the greatest. We got right up to Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, were the last two getting ready to get their introduction and get their rings, and my got bumped off the line. So I wanted to hear the cue erupt was what I was hoping I'll be able to see, and so that's a little aggravated right this second. But definitely looking forward to tonight's show. I'm looking forward to catching up with Ali Kern. She has been on the show quite a few times. A great driver over at Rev Racing. A lot of talent and a lot of great things coming in her future. So excited about that. Of course, catch up with Mark Redd over at Rette Jones Racing. A big fan of and friends of Martin Truex. So I'm sure that's going to be a topic of conversation as Martin Truex then kind of sells into the next round. And just a couple other things that we got to see at Talladega that we get to talk about.
Yep. I just put up a thing, an article, and put it on your timeline and on the One Penn Nation page, CJ, about NASCAR and JGR with the 3 guys hanging back, and they must be listening to our show because they mentioned what you mentioned, hanging back in the field, and they consider it a non-violation. So, again, mixed signals maybe, like what's the rule? It's a funny thing, and so they don't want to say that JGR is in violation, I guess, during the chase, and so there you go. They're not gonna penalize the JGR people in any way.
And of course, we're going to talk to Mark and ask him his opinion, but I just don't see, and this has been something that it has been talked about all day long. I just don't see how you can fault them or say that it was a violation of any rule. It's all about strategy, and people, who was talking yesterday, or it might have been yesterday, it might have been earlier today, but I saw this, that they were talking about, well, what about fuel strategy? Drivers are not given their 100% when they, do that. We see drivers, not go 100% all the time for one reason or another. But you allow you allow team racing in the sport. And if you allow team racing, these are some of the things that is a possibility of happening.
Well, like I said, I'm sorry. Like I said last night, CJ, with that, if there is, especially Talladega. I mean, like I said last night, more so than the other tracks even. If you have, you're going to be hanging back or trying to stick somewhere close to teammates. So if that was their strategy, that's why I thought that it was almost like a planned strategy. I have no way of knowing, but it just seemed to me, watching it transpire that that's what was happening. Could be totally wrong, who knows, but that was my take on it. And, I couldn't see where they could. There was a lot of things coming out, from the fans, like I don't know from the fans, but some of the writers saying they should, Talladega should apologize or JGR should apologize to the fans who came out to see racing. I think Steve Villmeyer put something up on his site, on his page, about that too, and that came out. And it, I didn't see a violation like you. I just didn't see any problem with it.
My whole thing, and I'm curious if these people are the same way when it comes to the NFL. Week 15, Week 16, their teams. I would be curious. I would love to know how many of those fans, NASCAR fans that are complaining, are, let's say, Tom Brady fans and fans of the New England Patriots. And I'm curious to know, of those fans, how many of them have an issue with Tom Brady sitting out Week 16 when they've already got it locked and already got the number one seed locked? Or how many of them have a problem with especially injuries he has sitting out Week 15, 16 if they're already locked? I wonder how many of those have an issue with those players sitting out. And it's funny because when it comes to NASCAR fans or fans in general that are fans of NASCAR and other sports, they like to be hypocrites about it. And what I mean is we before where if a player gets, say, Tom Brady, 4 games suspended already at the beginning of this year because of his involvement or whatever. So should Tom Brady not allowed to be considered a Super Bowl champion if the New England Patriots go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl because he didn't complete the full season? Just like people are having an issue with Kyle Busch and him not completing the full season. When it comes to sports and it comes to fans, it's a funny, fine line, nitpicking, backstabbing, two-faced conversation because what fans don't have a problem with in one sport, doesn't have an issue with in another sport. Just like those couple incidences right there. Like I said, I have no issues, nothing with the fact that those 3 Joe Gibbs Racing guys did that. One, they had no purpose of being up front. And someone's like, well, they at least could have ran for, try to compete. And they try to throw out, and I've seen this in a couple conversations talking about Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson, where they don't understand the difference between Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson versus the 3 Joe Gibbs Racing guys is Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson won a race. It didn't matter if they didn't finish it all. They were going to the next round. The Joe Gibbs Racing guys still had to finish, and they still had to finish in front of certain people, as Kyle Busch only made it in by 4 points. So it wasn't like they could go for broke. So you have 3 guys that knew where they had to finish. You had 3 guys that did not want to tear up anything, did not want to take a chance of having any injuries or anything else. As we've seen Kyle Busch last year miss part of the season. We've watched Junior miss half this season. We've seen this. We've seen this with Tony Stewart. We've seen this, with numerous drivers. So you eliminated that factor. But most important, and like I said, I don't even know if this was their purpose, but this would have been my purpose. you had 3 guys to get out of the way to give Denny Hamlin 3 spots that he didn't have to fight anybody else, fight anybody for. Basically, he was racing against 37 other guys, and that's part of strategy. That's part of being a team. That's part of game planning. And so I think that if NASCAR would have had an issue with this, this probably be one of those incidences that I probably would have been beyond pissed, because you allow team racing. And I'm sorry. Let's backtrack a few minutes. Let's backtrack to that infamous year that you heard team orders of Clinton Boyer going to pits, even though he didn't need to go in the pits, and whatnot. Yes, Michael Waltrip Racing, that would end up being the kind of the end of Michael Waltrip Racing because of that. Yes, they should have game planned off the radio amongst themselves, have some kind of pre-game, pre-race plan, and use code instead of being so obvious. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with, hey, look, we need you to do an unnecessary pit stop so we can allow Martin Truex to get into the chase or whatever. I forget how they were trying to work it, but it was to help get another driver into it. If it would have been for the fact that it was Jeff Gordon and that's who got bumped out, it probably wouldn't even been a big deal because it was Jeff Gordon, one of the golden child of NASCAR, and then it was a big issue. But I didn't even have an issue with that. You allow team racing. There is going to be team strategy. There's going to be things that are done that you're not necessarily going to see or happen or allow happen when it becomes, when it comes to different teams and single team organizations. And that's kind of nature of the beast and what you allowed when you open up this possibility. So I don't have an issue with that as well.
Yeah, well, it's just to underline what you said and how it worked out. If you look at what actually happened, Denny Hamlin did get in, and so obviously he knew what he was doing, and the team knew what they were doing because yes, it was close. They came within a tie with Austin Dillon, but they were the ones that advanced, and so you can make the argument that if that was what the plan was, the plan worked to perfection because Denny advanced. And there you have it. They got what they wanted out of it. If it was a planned move, again, we don't know. CJ and I sitting here have no idea. But if that was the planned move, they got what they went for. I mean, that's exactly the reason they did it.
I know you started jumping into the NASCAR topic before I started, I guess, before I started paying attention again anyway. Was there, I know usually if there's any points, deductions, fines, penalties, anything like that, normally it's usually probably Wednesday time frame, but any highlight or any notes, any talk of anything or anything coming out of NASCAR camp today?
Not as of yet. That's usually Wednesday, and I know it could be different at different times. But the only thing that came out, and I that's what I posted to you and what I posted on the 110 Nation page, the only thing that came out, obviously this morning, was Steve O'Donnell was on Sirius Radio, and unfortunately I don't get Sirius here, but anyway, he for the second time, there was something else that came out earlier in NASCAR earlier this season with some issue with Steve O'Donnell addressing it, and I don't entirely remember what the first thing was, but obviously there was more talk between, just not only us talking about it, because whenever they address something like this on their morning NASCAR program, you can bet more people than just us are talking about it. And, obviously this is what, this issue with JGR is what was a major thing today.
Oh, goodness. The Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans played last night. I tell you what, Brock Osweiler. I have seen so many. You almost feel bad for the guy now. Talking about Houston man robs team of $72 million. I think the topic conversation all morning long on Fox Sports Radio was the fact that everybody feels it's probably one of the worst contracts in NFL history. He was, 21 of 41 or something for 130-something yards. He's averaged like 3.95 yards or something, or 3.5 yards or something like that a pass. I feel after having an opportunity to see him play in Denver, and then an opportunity to have him play somewhere else, he kind of reminds me of Matt Castle, where I'm not going to say that the Denver system was anywhere close as good as the Patriots system, but you had a quarterback that was a team that was really good. The Denver Broncos had the number one defense. You had at least three legitimate passing targets. You had a running game, and you had an offense that did a fairly good job of protecting the quarterback. Then go to Houston, where your run game is not as good. You only have really DeAndre Hopkins, and you're not being protected as well. And you no longer have the number one defense. So if you make a mistake, you don't have a defense that's stopping the opponent. You don't have a defense that's getting you back on the field. On the field. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. So, yes, Brock Osweiler, you probably got your one and only payday contract. I am sure you're going to get other contracts, but I think that unless Brock Osweiler gets an opportunity to go to another team that is, kind of resembles Denver in the fact that they have a really good team, you're a Super Bowl championship team, I don't think Brock Osweiler is going to be successful. He's going to have to be he's one of those quarterbacks, and maybe over experience and maybe a couple rough years. Maybe it was fed to him too easily. Maybe jumping into a team that was designed to make Peyton's job very easy. He was not a mobile quarterback. He was given a lot of targets. They knew he couldn't take too many hits. You put an offensive line in front of him to protect him, and you knew that you couldn't rely on just strictly passing. You had to have a diverse game plan, a game plan that kept the defense true. So you had a running game. Maybe Denver having such a good team and him being put into that predicament and getting that opportunity, maybe that was a bad thing for him. Maybe, he got back there and was like, wow, I could do this. Wow, I could go anywhere. And, I done proved myself. And no, actually, you really didn't. You were set into an ideal situation, a team that ended up going on and winning the Super Bowl. And now you're starting to see what the struggle is really like, what it is to be on a team that wasn't designed and drafted and free agents around making sure that they protected one of the oldest quarterbacks and at least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right, and the thing about it is, face it, fans. They're not as good as the Texans aren't as good. Houston is not as good as Denver, and that's why they got beat last night. Denver played like Denver, as opposed to the previous week when they lost to San Diego. But Denver played like Denver, and when Denver plays up to their ability, not too many teams can beat them. And, Osweiler or not, I don't, and there was actually one writer that came out, and I didn't post it because I had already posted the one, and I didn't want it, the one story about it. There was one writer that came out and said that Osweiler should never have left Denver. I mean, so like Simeon is doing the job over there. So it's not necessarily that Brock Eisweiler left Denver. Yes, he probably, that shows too that it might not be all the quarterback. It's the team that you got around you too. And
he should. There's no doubt. There's no doubt he should have never left Denver.
Right.
No doubt in my mind that he should have never left Denver.
Well, if he wanted to go to the Super Bowl, yeah, true. That's like somebody leaving New England Patriots. I don't think anybody wants to.
I'm not even going to say that if he wanted to win the Super Bowl. I mean, he's already got a ring. Now that he was part of that team, it's not even that. I feel if you want to prolong your career, if you want to get another contract, see where in my opinion, where he screwed up. If he would have stayed in Denver, yeah, he wouldn't have got the ridiculous contract that he would have got. He was offered a great contract. He just was being greedy about it and wanted more. What he should have done is stayed in Denver, got this really nice contract that Denver offered, went ahead and fulfilled that contract, set himself up for the next contract, which could have been even better with Denver, or he could have went somewhere else and already looked really good because he was in a system that one he was familiar with, two that was designed really to make sure that his job was easier and he was protected, and really could have probably cleaned up on his next contract. He could have ended up with probably at least two above average to good to even possibly great contracts. Now you're looking at one great contract, and that's probably going to be about it.
Right. And as far as, like you said, it's just basically people being, players being greedy. And you're not going to see what's interesting to me, and I was thinking about this today too with leaving Denver or not leaving Denver because I was reading both articles. The interesting thing was, to me, you look at a similar team that we've discussed many times here, New England. You don't get players leaving the Patriots for another team. The majority of the time when somebody leaves the Patriots or is off the team, it's because they're cut, or they don't play up to the level that they have in the past, and Belichick is not, emotional about it. He just gets rid of you, and that's probably partially why they're so successful. They don't. I mean, not Tom Brady, okay? Tom Brady's in another case, unfortunately. When he stops, that's going to be emotional, I would think. But when you talk about the regular quote-unquote, everyday players that they have, when they outlive their usefulness or don't play up to a certain level, they're cut. And you don't see players leaving the Patriots for like a bigger contract somewhere else. And that's basically the difference, in the teams. That difference, that situation. What? You don't hear about that,
Well, what do you do? I mean, do you as an athlete, do you stay making less for the possibility of winning the Super Bowl, or do you take your chances and go elsewhere, knowing that you feel you're worth a lot more, that you deserve a lot more, and you feel you could do good somewhere else and possibly win a championship somewhere else? I feel that's got to be at times a difficult situation, especially depending on how talented you are or how talented you show you can be. I don't know if I can necessarily sit with the team knowing I'm limited on how much money I'm going to make, and I don't know. I guess I don't know. If I knew I had a certain skill set, I think I would think about it. I guess to me, when it's all said and done, I guess we get to see who's truly about being a team player, who's truly about being who's more concerned about winning a ring and being part of a championship team, and who's more worried about themselves and a big contract.
Right. And the thing, thinking back to when he went to Houston, and when I think the thing that I can remember being somewhat, I won't say surprised because nothing surprises me in sports anymore, but a little bit, let's put it this way, a little bit surprised is when you consider that Manning retired. It's not like he was going to sit on the bench because because let's face it, everybody beat out Mark Sanchez, and so he would have too, in all probability. So, you know, it wasn't like he was going to be even a backup this year. The chances are that he would have been the number one quarterback, and that was another surprising thing with him specifically about why he left, and that underlines what you said initially was he just went for the money. You know.
I mean, I can understand his feelings were hurt. You know, I stepped in with Peyton Manning was hurt. I helped get us in the playoffs, everything else, and I went straight to the bench when Peyton Manning was ready. But you knew that was Peyton Manning's team. You knew what they were trying to accomplish with Peyton Manning. You knew